Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
The kitchen clock ticked past midnight, and I sat there nursing my third cup of coffee, watching the empty driveway through our designer windows. Mira hadn't come home yet. Again. My name is Landon Keyston, and I'm a freelance tech consultant who apparently married a stranger. 4 months ago, everything changed. The woman who used to curl up against me on Sunday mornings suddenly developed chronic headaches, mysterious late meetings, and an aversion to my touch that could freeze hell over. I'd tried everything. Date nights she'd cancel last minute. Flowers she'd barely acknowledge. Even couples therapy, which she attended with the enthusiasm of someone getting a root canal. "You're being paranoid, Landon," she'd say, checking her phone, while Dr. Martinez tried to get us to communicate. "I'm just stressed about work." Work. Always work. The garage door finally rumbled open at 12:47 a.m. I stayed in the kitchen, pretending to read emails on my laptop. Mira breezed in wearing her black cocktail dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. She looked stunning and completely untouchable. "How was the client dinner?" I asked without looking up. "Exhausting." She kicked off her heels and headed straight for the stairs. "I'm going to shower." No kiss goodnight. No explanation for why a client dinner lasted until nearly 1 in the morning. Just the sound of her footsteps retreating upstairs like she couldn't get away from me fast enough. I closed the laptop and followed her up. The shower was already running. Her phone sat on the nightstand, screen lighting up with notifications. My finger hovered over it for a moment before I pulled back. I wasn't that guy, not yet. When she emerged from the bathroom 20 minutes later, wrapped in her silk robe with her hair in a towel, she found me sitting on the edge of our king-sized bed. "Mira, we need to talk," she sighed, the kind of theatrical sigh that made it clear I was being unreasonable. "Can it wait until tomorrow? I have that huge presentation for the Valhurst account." Adrian Valhurst, her boss, the man she'd been working late for every night this week. "When did we stop being a team?" I asked quietly. She paused in her nightly skincare routine, meeting my eyes in the vanity mirror. For a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Regret? Then it was gone, replaced by that cool mask she'd perfected. "We're fine, Landon. You're overthinking things." She turned back to the mirror. "Besides, tomorrow's the annual gala, the biggest night of my career. I need to focus." The gala. Right. The event she'd been obsessing over for weeks. The one where all the important people in her company would gather to celebrate another year of making rich people richer. "I'll drive you," I offered. "That's not necessary. Tasha's picking me up. We need to arrive together for photos." Tasha. Her best friend and fellow climber at the PR firm. The one who posted cryptic Instagram stories about girls' nights that never seemed to include any actual girls. I watched my wife apply her expensive night cream with practiced precision. Everything about her was precise now, calculated. Even the way she slipped into bed, staying firmly on her side, building an invisible wall between us. "Good night," she whispered into the darkness. I lay there for hours, listening to her breathe, wondering when exactly I'd become a stranger in my own marriage. The woman beside me felt like a beautiful, cold statue. Perfect to look at, impossible to touch. Morning came with the usual routine. Mira up at 6, yoga in the living room, green smoothie, shower, then an hour getting ready while I made coffee and checked my work emails. We moved around each other like polite roommates. "The gala starts at 7, she said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. "Don't wait up if it runs late." "How late are we talking?" "These things can go until midnight. Sometimes later." She grabbed her purse and keys. "There's leftover pasta in the fridge." And just like that, she was gone. Off to spend another day working closely with Adrian Valhurst, preparing for an evening that apparently didn't require my presence. I sat in our empty kitchen, surrounded by granite countertops and stainless steel appliances that cost more than most people's cars, and realized I felt more alone than I had in years. This house, our life together, all of it felt like an elaborate stage set for a play I was no longer part of. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister Barb. "How's married life treating you, little brother?" I stared at the question for a long time before typing back, living the dream. But as I hit send, I made a decision. Tonight, I was going to the gala, whether Mira wanted me there or not. It was time to see what was really going on in my wife's perfect professional world. The invitation was still in her desk drawer, along with the seating chart that showed our table assignment. Table 12, right next to the head table, where Adrian and Celine Valhurst would be holding court. I spent the afternoon getting ready, haircut, shave, my best suit. If I was going to crash my own wife's party, I might as well look good doing it. The Valhurst Group's annual gala was held at the Meridian Hotel's rooftop ballroom, 30 floors above downtown Boston. I arrived fashionably late at 8:30, just as cocktail hour was winding down and people were finding their seats. The place screamed money, crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, and enough flowers to stock a funeral home. I spotted Mira immediately, standing near the head table in a stunning red dress I'd never seen before. She was laughing at something a tall, dark-haired man was saying. Adrian Valhurst, no doubt. I grabbed a whiskey from the bar and made my way through the crowd. Mira saw me coming and her face went through a fascinating series of expressions. Surprise, panic, then a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. Landon, I thought you weren't coming. Changed my mind. Figured I should meet this famous boss of yours. I extended my hand to Adrian. Landon Keyston, the husband. Adrian's handshake was firm, his smile genuine. Adrian Valhurst. Mira's told me so much about you. Funny, she'd barely told me anything about him. And this must be your wife, I said, turning to the stunning woman beside him. Celine Valhurst was the kind of beautiful that made smart men do stupid things. Late 30s with platinum blonde hair and eyes the color of winter ice. She looked me up and down with undisguised interest. Celine, she said, offering her hand. I've been dying to meet Mira's mysterious husband. Mysterious? She keeps you all to herself. Never brings you to company events. Celine's smile had an edge to it. I was beginning to think you didn't exist. I glanced at Mira, whose face had gone pale. Well, here I am, in the flesh. The dinner bell chimed and people began moving toward their tables. I started to follow Mira to table 12, but Celine caught my arm. Actually, we're one short at the head table tonight. Would you mind terribly joining us? I promise we're more entertaining than table 12. The invitation was delivered with a smile, but there was something predatory about it. I looked at Mira, whose mouth had fallen open slightly. I wouldn't want to impose, I said. Nonsense. Adrian, tell him it's fine. Adrian nodded, though he looked slightly confused. Of course. We'd be delighted. So I found myself seated at the head table, between Celine Valhurst and Louis, Adrian's assistant. Mira was relegated to table 12, 20 feet away, where I could see her trying to maintain her composure, while Tasha whispered frantically in her ear. Tell me about yourself, Landon, Celine said, placing her hand on my forearm. What do you do? Tech consulting. Mostly security systems and data recovery. How fascinating. You must see all sorts of secrets. People are amazingly careless with their digital lives. Aren't they just? Her fingers traced a small circle on my wrist. I imagine you could find out almost anything about anyone if you wanted to. The conversation felt loaded with subtext I didn't quite understand. But I played along, letting Celine flirt, while keeping one eye on Mira, who looked like she was about to be sick. During the main course, Louis leaned over and whispered, She's quite taken with you. Mrs. Valehurst? She's been asking about you for weeks. Ever since Mira mentioned she was married. Interesting. What kind of questions? Where you work, what you do, why you never come to company events? Louis glanced around, then added quietly, "Between you and me, I think she's been testing your wife, seeing how loyal she is." And? Louis just shrugged and went back to his salmon. The evening progressed with speeches, awards, and the usual corporate back-patting. I made small talk with the other head table guests, while Celine continued her subtle campaign of seduction. Every touch, every laugh, every whispered comment was perfectly calculated to be noticed by the entire room, including my wife. During dessert, Celine excused herself to powder her nose and asked if I'd escort her. As we walked through the ballroom, she made sure to take my arm, lean in close, laugh at things I wasn't saying. The gossip mill was practically humming. In the hallway outside the restrooms, she turned to face me. "Your wife is having an affair," she said matter-of-factly. The words hit me like a physical blow, even though part of me had been expecting them. Why are you telling me this? Because I like you, and because Mira thinks she's cleverer than she actually is. Celine reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "If you ever need a friend, call me." She pressed the card into my palm, then stood on her tiptoes and kissed my cheek. The gesture was perfectly timed for maximum visibility as a group of Mira's coworkers walked past. When we returned to the table, Mira was nowhere to be seen. Adrian mentioned she'd stepped outside for air. I found her on the terrace, gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Having fun?" I asked. She spun around, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "What are you doing, Landon?" "Enjoying the party. Your boss's wife is charming." "This is my career. These are my colleagues. You can't just what? Exist? Talk to people? Enjoy myself at a party my own wife didn't want me to attend?" She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. In the distance, I could see the valet area where a familiar figure was helping someone into a car. Chase Duval, one of Mira's coworkers. The same Chase who'd been texting her constantly, who she'd mentioned having late dinners with, who was currently putting his hand on the small of another woman's back as he guided her into his BMW. Except the woman wasn't his wife. It was Tasha. "I'm going home," Mira said suddenly. "Want me to drive you?" "No, I'll get a ride." I watched her walk back into the ballroom, then pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. If my wife was playing games, it was time I learned the rules. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my car in the hotel's valet area when Mira emerged with Chase. They thought they were being discreet, leaving separately, meeting by his car. But from where I sat, I had a perfect view as he pulled her into his arms and kissed her, like a man who'd been waiting all evening for the chance. I took 17 photos before they broke apart. I beat Mira home by 2 hours. Plenty of time to upload the photos to my secure cloud storage, make copies, and do a little digital detective work on her laptop. She'd left it open on the kitchen counter, still logged into her email. Amazing how careless people get when they think they're untouchable. The folder labeled C Personal told me everything I needed to know. 4 months of explicit messages, calendar invites for business lunches that coincided with her mysterious absences, and photos from their weekend trip to Vermont that she'd told me was a company retreat. My hands were surprisingly steady as I scrolled through the evidence of my marriage's destruction. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe I was just tired of being played for a fool. I heard her key in the lock at 2:47 a.m. and quickly closed the laptop. She crept upstairs like a teenager, sneaking in past curfew, probably thinking I was asleep. I gave her 10 minutes, then followed. She was sitting on the bed, still in her red dress, staring at her phone with a frown. "Good party?" I asked from the doorway. She jumped. "I thought you were asleep." "Couldn't sleep. Too much excitement." I sat down in the chair across from the bed. "We need to talk." "Landon, it's almost 3 in the morning. Perfect time for honesty, don't you think?" Something in my tone made her look up sharply. For the first time in months, I had her complete attention. "I know about Chase." The color drained from her face. "What are you talking about?" "I saw you together tonight, in the valet area. Very romantic." She stood up quickly, smoothing down her dress. "You're being ridiculous. Chase is a colleague, who you've been having an affair with for 4 months." The words hung in the air between us. Mira opened her mouth, closed it, then sank back down on the bed. How long have you known? I suspected for weeks, confirmed it tonight. I leaned back in the chair, surprised by how calm I felt. The question is, what do we do now? Landon, I can explain. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks pretty straightforward. You got bored with our marriage, found someone more exciting, and decided to have your cake and eat it too. Tears started sliding down her cheeks. It's not like that. Then explain it to me. Make me understand why my wife of 3 years has been lying to my face every single day. She wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup. You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work. The expectations. Chase gets it. He supports my career.
2 key cards. You asked for 2. Who was the second 4?
My colleague needed a place.
Your colleague who calls you baby in her texts?
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
And I don't? You're content with your little consulting business, working from home in your pajamas. You don't have ambition. You don't push me to be better. The accusation stung because there was just enough truth in it to hurt. I had been content. Happy, even. Apparently, that was my crime. So, you decided to upgrade. It's not about upgrading. It's about finding someone who wants the same things I want. And what's that? Corner office? Company car? Trophy husband? She flinched. I want to matter. I want to be somebody. And I was holding you back. Yes. No. I don't know. She buried her face in her hands. It just happened. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our perfectly manicured neighborhood. Well, congratulations. You matter now. Half the company saw you with Chase tonight. The other half saw me with Celine Valhurst. I'd say you've definitely made an impression. What's that supposed to mean? I turned back to face her. It means your secret's out, sweetheart. And in my experience, secrets have a way of spreading. The next morning, Mira left for work in a panic. Her phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m. with calls and texts she wouldn't answer in front of me. I made coffee and checked my email, unsurprised to find a message from Celine Valhurst. Lovely meeting you last night. Lunch this week? I have a proposition that might interest you. S. I was still staring at the message when my phone rang. Kirk, my oldest friend and the closest thing I had to a brother. Heard you caused quite a stir last night, he said without preamble. Word travels fast. My girlfriend's cousin works at Valhurst. Says the whole office is buzzing about Mira and some guy named Chase. Also something about you and the boss's wife getting cozy. Kirk ran a small construction company and had the kind of blue-collar connections that could be surprisingly useful. More importantly, he'd never liked Mira. Want to grab a beer tonight? I asked. Thought you'd never ask. I spent the day working or pretending to work. Mostly I sat in my home office, staring at the photos from last night and trying to figure out my next move. Part of me wanted to confront Chase directly. Another part wanted to pack my bags and disappear. But the strongest part, the part that was growing louder by the hour, wanted revenge. Mira came home at 7 looking haggard. Her makeup was smudged, her hair disheveled, and she had the shell-shocked expression of someone whose world was crumbling. How was work? I asked pleasantly. Awful. People are talking, asking questions. She slumped into a chair at the kitchen table. HR wants to see me tomorrow. That's unfortunate. She looked up at me sharply. You did something. What did you do? I didn't do anything. You did. Landon, please. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, take a vacation, start over. Start over. I laughed, and the sound was harsher than I intended. You mean, pretend the last 4 months didn't happen? Pretend you didn't lie to me every single day? Pretend you're not in love with another man? I'm not in love with him. No? Then what would you call it? She was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Well, when you figure it out, let me know. In the meantime, I'm going out. I met Kirk at Murphy's, a dive bar on the south side that served cheap beer and minded its own business. He was waiting in our usual booth, already 3 drinks ahead of me. You look like hell, he said by way of greeting. Feel worse. I signaled the bartender for a whiskey. My wife's been cheating on me. I know, you want to talk about it or you want to do something about it? That was Kirk. No sympathy, no platitudes, just straight to the point. What kind of something? He grinned, and I remembered why we'd been friends since high school. Kirk had always been the one with the plans, the schemes, the willingness to cross lines that other people respected. Depends how creative you want to get. The next morning, I woke up with a hangover and a plan. Kirk's suggestions had been characteristically direct and completely illegal, but they'd sparked some ideas of my own. Legal ideas. Mostly legal. Mira was already gone when I stumbled downstairs. A note on the counter said she'd be working late again. Some things never changed. I spent the morning making phone calls, first to our bank, where I discovered that as joint account holders, I could freeze our credit cards and transfer funds to a separate account. For security purposes, of course. Then to our lawyer, ostensibly to update our wills, but really to understand my rights in a divorce. Finally, I called Celine Valahurst. I was hoping you'd call, she said without preamble, about that lunch invitation. How's today? Say 1 o'clock at the Meridian? The same hotel where the gala had been held. Interesting choice. I arrived early and found Celine already seated at a corner table in the restaurant. She looked stunning in a way that seemed effortless, but probably took hours to achieve. You look terrible, she said as I sat down. Rough night. I imagine so. How did Mira take the news that her secret was out? About as well as you'd expect. I signaled the waiter for coffee. You said you had a proposition. Direct. I like that. She leaned forward slightly. I want to hire you. For what? Security consulting. My husband's been acting strangely lately. Secretive. I think he might be having an affair. The irony was almost funny. Almost. And you want me to find out for sure? I want you to find out everything. Who she is, how long it's been going on, what they're planning. Her eyes glittered with something that might have been malice. I'm willing to pay very well for thoroughness. Why me? Because you understand betrayal. And because working for me will give you access to information about your wife that you might find useful. I studied her face, trying to read between the lines. What kind of information? The kind that could end her career. Chase's too, for that matter. You know about Chase? Darling, I know everything that happens in my husband's company. The question is, what are you willing to do with what you know? I thought about Mira's tears the night before, her promises to fix things, her casual dismissal of our marriage as something that had been holding her back. What did you have in mind? Celine's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Let me tell you about the company's morality clause. An hour later, I walked out of the Meridian with a consulting contract worth more than I usually made in 6 months, and a flash drive containing Valahurst Group's Employee Handbook. Section 12.3 was particularly interesting. Employees engaging in relationships that create conflicts of interest or damage the company's reputation may be subject to immediate termination. I spent the afternoon reviewing the handbook and making more phone calls. By 5 o'clock, I had a clear picture of exactly how much trouble Mira and Chase were in. By 6, I had a plan to make it worse. The first step was simple: documentation. I set up a new email account and began forwarding copies of Mira's messages to myself. Not illegal, since they were sent from our shared laptop, just thorough. The second step required Kirk's help. You want me to do what? He asked when I called. Find out where Chase lives and where he parks his car. Planning a little vandalism? Planning a little justice. Kirk's laugh was dark and appreciative. Now you're talking my language. Mira came home at 9, looking exhausted. Her meeting with HR had apparently not gone well. They're investigating, she said, collapsing onto the couch. Someone filed a complaint about inappropriate workplace relationships. Any idea who? Could be anyone. Half the office saw us together at various events. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. Landon, I need you to know that whatever happens, I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. And now? Now I'm thinking about losing my job, my career, everything I've worked for. I sat down across from her, studying her face. What about us? What about our marriage? I don't know, she whispered. I honestly don't know if we can come back from this. Then I guess we'll find out. That night, after Mira fell asleep, I drove to Chase's apartment complex. Kirk was waiting in the parking garage with a bag of supplies and a grin that would have worried a smarter man than Chase Duvall. You sure about this? Kirk asked as we approached Chase's BMW. Completely sure. What we did next wasn't technically illegal. Malicious, yes. Petty, absolutely. But not illegal. We didn't damage the car. We just made it very unpleasant to drive. The shrimp in the air vents would start smelling in about 12 hours. The glitter in the exhaust pipe would create a festive display every time he started the engine. And the note under his windshield wiper was a simple statement of fact. Everyone knows. We were back at Murphy's by midnight, celebrating with shots of cheap whiskey and planning Phase 2. What's Phase 2? Kirk asked. Public humiliation. My favorite kind. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Mira's phone ringing. She answered it in the bathroom, but I could hear her voice rising in panic. What do you mean your car was vandalized? Who would do that? No, I don't know anything about it. I smiled and went downstairs to make coffee. 20 minutes later, Mira appeared in the kitchen, fully dressed and clutching her purse. I have to go, she said. Chase needs a ride to work. Car trouble? Someone played a prank on him, filled his vents with seafood. That's unfortunate. Hope it wasn't expensive seafood. She shot me a suspicious look, but didn't say anything. After she left, I called Selene. Phase 1 complete, I reported. Excellent. Ready for Phase 2? What's Phase 2? A party, tomorrow night. My husband's birthday. Very exclusive guest list. I think you should come. Will Mira be there? Oh, yes. She and Chase both. It should be quite entertaining. I hung up and opened my laptop. Time to do a little more research on Chase Duvall. If we were going to destroy him, I wanted to be thorough about it. What I found exceeded my wildest expectations. Chase wasn't just cheating with my wife. He was embezzling from the company, skimming money from client accounts to fund his lifestyle. The evidence was all there in his digital footprint, hidden but not well enough to fool someone who knew what to look for. I copied everything to a secure drive and sat back in my chair, amazed at how stupid some people could be. Chase had just handed me the ammunition to destroy not just his relationship with Mira, but his entire life. The question was, how much collateral damage was I willing to cause? Adrian Valhurst's birthday party was held at the penthouse of his Beacon Hill mansion, a sprawling affair with a guest list that read like a who's who of Boston's business elite. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best suit and a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Selene greeted me at the door, stunning in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my car. You came, she said, taking my arm. I wasn't sure you would. Wouldn't miss it for the world. She led me through the crowd, making introductions and ensuring that everyone saw us together. The gossip mill was already working overtime from the gala, and tonight's performance would seal the deal. I spotted Mira near the bar, deep in conversation with Chase. She looked beautiful and miserable, like someone attending her own wake. Chase, on the other hand, looked nervous. His BMW was apparently still reeking of seafood, despite 2 trips to the car wash. Enjoying yourself? Selene asked as we paused near the windows overlooking the harbor. Immensely, though I think your husband suspects something. Adrian? He's too distracted by his own problems to worry about mine. Problems? The embezzlement investigation, didn't I mention? Someone's been skimming from client accounts. Adrian's beside himself. I followed her gaze to where Adrian stood with a group of serious-looking men in expensive suits. His face was grim, his body language tense. Any idea who? Oh, I have my suspicions. Celine's smile was razor-sharp. I imagine we'll know soon enough. The evening progressed with the usual party rituals. Dinner, speeches, the presentation of an expensive watch that Adrian accepted with obvious distraction. I made small talk with other guests while keeping one eye on Mira and Chase, who seemed to be having an increasingly heated, whispered conversation. Around 10 o'clock, Selene suggested we step onto the terrace for air. The October night was crisp and clear, the city spread out below us like a circuit board. Beautiful view, I said. I'm going to miss it. Going somewhere? Adrian and I are separating. The papers will be filed next week. I turned to look at her, surprised. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's been a long time coming. She moved closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. The question is, what are you going to do about your situation? I'm working on it. Are you? Because from where I stand, it looks like you're letting them win. Patience is a virtue. So is revenge. Before I could respond, the terrace door burst open and Chase stumbled out, looking panicked. He saw us and froze. Sorry, he mumbled. Didn't know anyone was out here. No problem, I said pleasantly. Enjoying the party? It's fine. He glanced back toward the door. Have you seen Mira? Not recently. Everything all right? Yeah, we need to talk. Celine stepped forward, her smile predatory. Actually, Chase, I've been meaning to speak with you. About the Morrison account. Chase's face went pale. What about it? Just some discrepancies in the billing. I'm sure it's nothing. We should discuss it Monday. Chase muttered something about needing another drink and fled back inside. Celine watched him go with obvious satisfaction. What was that about? I asked. The beginning of